All right, here we go. Delray Richardson. Happy to have you back on the platform, my man.
Thanks for having me back, Art. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, the people love you, man. So, it was only right to bring you back, my man. So.
Well, I appreciate the love as well as the people who appreciate the facts and the things that we've been dispersing to them. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, man. So, the Tupac Museum, man. I heard you seen some paperwork at the museum that caught your attention, my man.
Absolutely. In particular, there was one letter that Tupac had wrote um, to who he thought at that particular time was his real father. And so um, the fact of the matter is I actually talked to his real father uh, often. You know what I mean? A man by the name of Billy Garland, for those who know and those who may not know. And when I saw this letter, the conversations that me and Mr. Garland had over time, I've been privy to some things that he's told me that I wasn't at liberty to even talk on camera until now. You know what I mean? And I talked to him. He gave me the okay, and he said it was okay. You know what I mean? And I checked in with him before we actually did this video. And so the letter in particular is Tupac talking about who he thought at that particular time, which was told to him by his mother, that another guy by the name of Legs, Kenneth Saunders, was his father. And so what I'm gonna do is right now is I'm gonna share with your viewers. I'm gonna read the actual letter, and here's the letter right here. So and it starts off. It says chapter 1. It says the title of the letter is chapter 1, the Panther and the Gangster. And like I said, it really hit me tough, because I was like, wow. It says, my father's life is a mystery to me, but I will start to share what little information I do have with you. His given name was Kenneth Saunders. He had a daughter from his first marriage before my mom, and he was a well-known gangster in the streets of Harlem, New York. But not by Kenneth Saunders on the streets. He was known as Legs because of his tall stature and his large physical build. I also know that he was an addicted freebaser and a natural sweet-talking con man. I know that from personal experience. Besides that, that's all I know about my father. It's a shame all I have is half of a page of history on the man who helped bring me into this world. I can say that he was good to me for the 6 months I spent with him. But in the words of the classic song, which was crazy, he said, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left me was alone.
Wow.
Yeah, that right there, it kind of hit me, because like I said, I've talked to Mr. Garland, and there was another thing that really caught my eye too, and it was the actual birth certificate of Tupac Shakur. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow, actually there's two. There's one with Paris Lisane Crooks, which was Tupac's given birth name. And then there's another one which actually has Tupac Amaru Shakur on it. And so what I thought was ironic about that was the fact that it didn't have Mr. Kenneth Saunders Legs, who Tupac was told to be his father. And it also didn't have who Tupac's real father was, Billy Garland. And so, like I said, so for me, something that me and Tupac had talked about briefly, the fact that I carry somebody's last name that's not actually my father, and he carried somebody's last name who actually wasn't his father. That's a conversation that we had when he had got out of prison. And so among other conversations that we had, like I said, my relationship with him was more of a personal one, not one of trying to be a rapper, here's my demo, and so on and so forth. And me and Mr. Garland have talked about that. And like I said, he shared with me an abundance of information. And so when I recently, when I sent him that letter, he told me that it broke his heart. That Afeni had lied to Tupac in regards to who his real father was.
Right.
Despite all of the things that Mr. Garland was there for when Tupac had got shot. being in the hospital. Like I said, he told me that, he was there in the hospital. He was in Vegas, when Tupac was basically on life support. He had went to Jasmine Guy's house. He gave me an abundance of information. And the thing that hit me the most was, is that, how Afeni lied to Tupac about who his real father was when she really actually knew. And the craziest part about all of this is that when Tupac died, after he died, Afeni had put on from Mr. Garland, she had put on the death certificate that Tupac's father was actually dead. You know what I mean? So that was the thing that struck me the most. So when we talked about that, it was really, really ironic. And the reason why I say this, and I'm bringing this to, your viewers, and I appreciate you having me back, is because in our community, we have a lot of that. You know what I mean? Like I said, my situation, Tupac's situation, and various other African-American male situations, where we grow up, whether it's, a father's not in the home, there was disenchantment between the mother and the father, and, this thing happens where they separate, and, and there's just this friction that goes on. You know what I mean? So it runs prevalent in our community. And so that was the reason why I actually, like I said, I sent him that letter. And like I said, we've talked extensively, and yeah, it's a very powerful thing. And I thought the other thing that was powerful was the fact that Tupac had witnessed, who he thought was his father, freebasing. You know what I mean? And the drugs and the things like that. And so, and when I thought about that too, not coming down on Afeni like that, but the fact that, she may have had her problems too, which was with drugs, and Tupac was honest about that enough in his music, and so on and so forth. And then, when you hear Dear Mama, he basically goes into in the song, he says, I was looking for a father, he was gone, and when he talked about that, it's like, wow, at that time she knew. And, Afeni had said that was one of her favorite songs that Tupac had wrote, so I was wondering, like, well, wow, how did that affect her, when she heard Tupac actually rap about that, he said, they say I'm wrong and I'm heartless, but all along I was looking for a father and he was gone, so I think, that was the part that really hit me with that letter. And that she had told him that, and never told him the truth. And the only way that his father was able to really get in touch with him, most people would say to themselves, they say, well, he could have got at Tupac, he could have did this, he could have did that. And the fact of the matter is that he was trying to get at Tupac, but people were giving him the runaround. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason that was between Tupac's father, Billy Garland, and Afeni, for whatever their situation was, which I'm not really privy to, as to why she felt that way and didn't want him around, and so on and so forth. So, but he told me that, hey, they got together, and, Tupac told him that he loved him, and, they rekindled their relationship. But the biggest part was the fact that on that death certificate, she had put, after Mr. Garland was in Vegas, Mr. Garland was at the hospital, Mr. Garland was at Jasmine Guy's house, and actually he told me that he had spent time with her in Vegas, and they were staying at the I think it was the Golden Nugget, staying at the same hotel. And but when Tupac passed, she actually put on the death certificate that his father had passed away.
So why do you think Afeni lied to Tupac about his dad being dead?
I think it was because of some disenchantment that they might have had. You know what I mean? And usually that's what the case is. But then when you think about the latter part of it, I think it came down to money. I think it actually came down to money. You know what I mean? Because if Mr. Garland was there in his life, and was known to be his father, on the death certificate, then he would have a right to half of that estate.
And Tupac, he found out that his dad was alive while he was in the hospital?
Yeah, he actually found out, like I said, when he was recuperating in the hospital at Bellevue Hospital after he had got shot at Quad. And so, Mr. Garland said that when he had walked up there to the hospital, and he walked in, he said basically he was going in to see his son. When he walked up, the security guard was there. He said basically that he said, I'm going to see my son. He said, who's your son? He said, Tupac. He said he said the security guard actually told him that Tupac father's dead. And
Wow.
yeah, and that I think it was either Afeni came out and said no, no, that's Tupac's father. Let him in. So that goes to show what I'm saying is that she actually knew. You know what I mean? She actually knew because she got him to be allowed into the hospital to actually see Tupac.
So how did Tupac feel about that, man? Finding out that Afeni lied to him.
Well, Tupac was upset. He was upset. And from what I understand, there was various conversations and disenchantment between Tupac and his mom, in regards to that, So, yeah, he was pretty upset. But I don't think that stopped him from loving his mom, you know what I mean? Because that was his mom, you know what I mean? But like I said, he said so much in Dear Mama, you know what I mean? When you listen to the song, basically, kicked out on the streets, at the time I never thought I'd see a face. It ain't no woman alive that could take my mama's place. You know what I mean? So I think that just like I said, once again, in a lot of African American males' homes, we go through that. You know what I mean? We go through that. Like I said, I'm from Maryland, and how I grew up, Tupac, that same thing, being in Maryland, growing up, Baltimore School of the Arts, like I said, born in New York, and so just that thing, and just going from place to place and so on and so forth. So yeah, there was some disenchantment there.
And earlier you said Tupac had 2 birth certificates. You only showed one. Show me the other one, my man, because one said Tupac and the other one said Lassane.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Check it out. This one right here. This is the one that has Tupac Shakur on it, right? And then you have the other one right here. This is the one right here that has Lassane Crooks, which was his given birth name. And one of the questions that I had asked Mr. Garland, because there was a blog or something that had picked up the conversation that he had responded to me sending him the letter. He had responded on Facebook, and this blog had picked it up and kind of ran with it. And then I called him and we talked. And basically, I had asked him. I said, because I sent him the birth certificate also, and I said, do you know who Lassane is? And he said, who was Lassane? He said, I don't know. He said, I really, truly, honestly don't know who Lassane was, or the person that, Afeni would name Tupac after and naming him that as his birth name. So, yeah, that was another thing that I found ironic. And like I said, that was another conversation that we had in regards to that. So, yeah, it's crazy. But like I said, once again, the moral of this for me is, and hopefully in coming on here and talking about that, is the fact that, despite everything that Tupac had went through, despite him, not knowing who his real father was, and then finding out later on, he prevailed and he was successful at what he did. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, he died early, but like I said, he overcame a lot of obstacles, and I think that's the moral of this story. At the end of the day, when we look at his life, we should look at it from that perspective and saying, hey, you know what? He was a conqueror. He was a guy who, despite the odds, he made it happen.